I'm going to go through the process I use to take my video captured files of the sun through to a time-lapse video. There's several steps and they're shown on this slide in front. Steps to create a solar time-lapse video. It's probably fairly obvious to some of you, but anyway, for those that don't know and are interested to maybe have a go, this is what I do. I'm not suggesting it's the best way to do it, it's just the way I do it. I've picked most of this up from other people I've found online, looked in YouTube videos, solar chat website, whatever. It's what I do at the moment. It may change, but this is it. So steps are simply record lots and lots of video files of the sun. I typically record videos every 90 seconds or 2 minutes, as long as the conditions allow. Fortunately, I've got a fairly good southern horizon, so in the summer, July, I can run for about 10 hours, which makes it quite a long day, because you do have to keep your eye on this. So stack the video files in auto stack at 4, which will give you a single TIFF file for each video file. Take those files into IMPPG and sharpen as you see fit. Take the files from IMPPG into PixInsight and adjust contrast brightness. I should say these can be done as batch processes, which helps an awful lot. You don't have to do this step, contrast and brightness in PixInsight, you can do it elsewhere. I just happen to have PixInsight anyway, and the Solar Toolbox tool is actually very good, so I now use that. I still do some things in Photoshop. I don't like the colour that goes in PixInsight, I find it's too intense, so I take my PixInsight processed files into Photoshop, and I will add colour there. That can be done as a batch. You create an action and then apply that action to all the files. So then I've got all the individual colour files, which then go into another Photoshop. It's actually it's a script, I think. Automate stack files. So you load all your files into it, tell it to align them, hit go, and then go away for a while, because it takes a while to do it if you've got a lot of files. And then there's some steps to go through to turn that into the video file, and then I'll go through those. Let's start. Okay, so this is a quick run through the steps in IMPPG. It's mainly to show you how to batch process if you don't know how to do it. So I've got a folder here with all my stacked images from Auto Stacker. I can't remember how many there are. There's quite a few. 181 files. Obviously processing those individually would be a complete and utter pain, but fortunately IMPPG has a batch process in it. But the first thing you have to do is process one image, so just pick one and then process this as you see fit. We've got a little area here we can just focus on. Usually I'll adjust the histogram to enable it to be more easy to see how well focus is. Now this is actually quite reasonable. This is reasonably good without having touched anything. These are just the default settings. It's quite. When the seeing is very good, you'll find you need to do very little. So just tweak that a little bit, sharpen it up. If the raw file is actually quite good, I find I get a better result by dropping this down, which will soften it again, but then using this to do the sharpening. Seems to give a slightly cleaner sharpening result. Anyway, you can play around with these settings and get something you're comfortable with, something you like, apply it to the whole image, and then before you save it, reset the histogram, because you want it to be the raw histogram. And you can see you've got this nice prom here. At this point you save the settings, these settings, by here, save processing settings. Now if I go back to my folder here, see I can save the settings here, because you need these to apply to the batch process. And that's done that. Now to process all the images, there's this step here, batch processing. Add your files. So these are my time-lapse files, so that's where all the raw files are. Control A, this is in Windows. So that's added all the files. Then you need to add that settings file, which is in here. No, it's not. Where have I put it? It's there. And then identify a folder where you want to have the resultant images kept. And if I go to, I've created one for this. Where are we? So this is the IMPPG folder. So all the files that are processed in IMPPG will get dumped into that folder. And this is very quick. Start processing. You'll see it runs through 180 files very quickly. And that's it. So those, I can shut this down now. Now those files I will then process in PixInsight to do the contrast adjustment, any brightness possibly. And as in IMPPG, the first thing you need to do is just process one image. So if I go to the folder, this one, IMPPG, pick any one, load that in, pull up the Solar Toolbox. Now if you're not familiar with PixInsight, the way you process these is you can do a preview, so you can pull up another screen basically which has the image that you've loaded, and this allows you to see how you change the settings is going to affect the image. So that's interesting. I already had it open earlier, so it's come up with some settings. If I reset it, so this is how it would open. Now clearly we've got here surface and there's a prominence in here, so you have to tell it you're going to process surface and prominence. This first box, you can adjust the black point and the white point. It's really about maximising the histogram of how you use it. This is almost black anyway, so clicking the adjust the black point has made very little difference. You usually find the white point, it stretches the image quite a lot. Depends how you've recorded it. Oh, in fact that's a good one, that's not changed it at all. It'll be because there's a near white spot there. But anyway, you can play with those. I'll show you what happens if you adjust the white point, pull it down, it will brighten the image, which you might like, but what you need to watch is you blowing out some of these white areas anyway. So let's put that back to 1 in this case. It's easier just to put that to that. The next thing you can do is you can boost this prominence. So you tick this one, select it, and then the boost amount. I mean, again, you can play with this as much as you like. Typically I push it to around 50%. It depends on what you see. You give it a second, there we go. So that's made it, if you push it up even more, you can make it more visible. But it doesn't just brighten the prominence, it brightens the whole thing, as you can see. And again, it's just a personal preference how much you want to do it. What I find is if you push it really hard and make it very bright, the detail seems to suffer a little bit. So there's a balance in how much you apply and what it appears like. I should say that there is, when you select the Solar Toolbox, you will get documentation comes up, tells you how to use it. And there are some little tips that come up that tells you what the tool does, but you have to play around and work out what suits you. I tend to use about 50% or so for the prominence boost. And then the next thing to do is the contrast enhancement. There's two tools within this to do it. I tend to find, see, this is applied, this histogram equalization with these settings. I think it's too aggressive, so I tend to use this one. It's a little simpler to use too. Let's just switch that off again quickly. So that's the image just adjusted with a prominence boost, and then this will adjust the contrast over the whole image. I quite like that. 5 is typically what I leave it at. It's the default value. If it's a little bit too aggressive, you can just knock it back a little bit. It takes a few seconds to process it. It has changed. It wasn't that obvious just with one change of one unit, but it's quite nice. There's some nice detail in there. That's good. There are these other tools you can apply as well. I mean, if you put the colour in, I'll show you. I mean, I know you can play with it, but I just don't like it. To me, it's too deep. So I don't tend to use that. I do that in Photoshop. And you can also sharpen it. Now, we've already sharpened it in IMPPG, but you can do more if you like. I sometimes find if I just switch it on and the default settings they're very low. They do. You can see it's changed it. It does make it quite nice sometimes. Again, it's a personal preference, but you can see there's noise in it. So you have to be careful with these tools. I'll switch it off. Yeah, it's not hugely obvious because they're very low settings. As I said earlier, it's a choice you make how much to do. So that's the steps. Oops, I'll switch that off. Let's get rid of that. So at the moment, all I've got is the preview. So nothing's been applied yet to the raw image, which is still there. You can see the difference. So then I apply these settings to this image by hitting this little button. Something interesting will happen to the preview. Yeah, right. So now you see that the image has had those settings applied to it, but the previews also had these settings reapplied to it. So it's like a double thing, which sometimes is quite intriguing. You see how aggressive it is. So applying it twice doesn't look terribly good. But sometimes you'll see more stuff come out around the limb, which wasn't that obvious with the first pass. So if that happens, you can I just need to copy this. This is just a copy of these settings that I can apply to all the other images. So if I reset that, you'll see it'll reset the preview. What you can then do is just, why is that? That's interesting. It's not gone live. That's interesting. Why is that? Because I have to tell it it's surface and prominence. So you can just boost the prominence again if you want. In this case, nothing new's showing up, so we'll forget that. So let's get rid of that preview. So this is one image we processed. Now, to process all the rest with the settings I used for this image are captured in this little box here. So what I have to do is, I'm left-handed, so I left click. You right click if you're right-handed, and you will get this window comes up, and you're looking for the image container. And this is what will allow us to apply this process to all the files. So we apply the files here. So this is the right folder. That's because we loaded one earlier. So if I just Control A, load them all. I have to tell it where I want the processed images to go. In this case, they're going to go into this PixInsight PI folder. I don't want to do anything else, that's fine. And then what I do is to apply this process to all of those. Oh, hang on, what I have to do is Actually, I've not done it this way. This is going to be interesting. I'm assuming normally you would grab this arrow and you would drag it into the lower bar of that window. But in this case, I need to apply it to this. I'm going to assume that if I drag it over to there, it is. So it's now applying those settings to all the images. And this will take a minute or two to do it. Well, it's going to take quite a while. You see, image 6, image 7. So what I'll do is I'll just stop this recording and come back when it's finished. So see you in a minute. Okay, so PixInsight has finished processing all the images, and we should find them in this PixInsight folder. There they all are. Now, if you find that some of these files are very different in brightness, you may need to tweak them further individually, which is a little bit frustrating, but you can do it. If there were say 20 that needed adjusting, and they all needed a similar adjustment, I could actually do that adjustment in here again. Use, say, the curves tool instead of a solar toolbox. Adjust the settings for one image and then apply it in the same way using the image container to the other 19 of the 20 images. So you need to get a decent time lapse. You need the levels, the brightness, etc. in all of these to be very, very similar. Otherwise, the result is less than ideal. Of course, with the seeing conditions and thin cloud or whatever, you perhaps don't expect to get a perfect result, but it helps if they're all of a similar brightness and contrast. So let's get rid of this. So we can now come out of PixInsight, and the rest of what we're going to do will be in Photoshop. Presumably, if you don't have Photoshop, things like GIMP, the free software, you can do this in. You could probably do this in Lightroom. I'm not sure. I've never done it in Lightroom, although I do have it. I always do it in Photoshop, probably because when I learned how to do this, it was from a YouTube video which did it in Photoshop. But anyway, so the first thing I want to do is to add colour to all those files, and the way I would do that is to, there's a process, automate batch, which allows you to identify a folder with a lot of images in, and then apply an action in Photoshop. An action is the set of steps you want to make. So I want to add colour. So you identify the action, you have to create it, identify your folder, destination, OK, and it does it. Now I'll show you what I do. Now just on the action, let's just get rid of that. See, you've got a menu up here. If it's not showing, if you go to Window, Actions, this will come up. And there's already a bunch of default actions in there. These are within Photoshop, but I've created some solo ones in the past. And what's the last one I did? Solar colour. So this I created the other day. There's a typo in there. It doesn't matter. So action July the 14th, solar colour. Now you create that. I'll do your demo. So say I want to create a new action. I'll give it a title, demo colour. It'll go in the default actions, and then I should have opened an image first. Okay, let's see what happens. So when I hit record, it will record any steps I apply to an image. So let's do that. Let's open an image. So it's one of the PixInsight process ones. So I've loaded a file right now. the steps I'm going to apply to it is just to add colour. Now at the moment this is a monochrome file, so I have to change the mode to RGB. You can't add colour to a grayscale image. Then I will go to the Levels tool, where I've created a preset to add colour, which is, I quite like that, and then hit OK. And now on my Actions menu here, if I stop, because that's all I want, those are the only steps I wanted to do, you'll see that this demo colour action, I opened the file, I converted it into RGB, and then I applied the colour via the Levels tool. So I can now select this action and it will apply that action to all the images I will load. Now what I'm going to do is get rid of this image, and I'm not going to use that particular action because I've got another one that I'll use. So the tool is in Automate, Batch. The default action I'm going to use is going to be this one. The folder will be the PixInsight folder, that one. Select the destination folder will be Photoshop color, and that's okay, leave it unchecked, then hit OK, and now it's processing all those images. And if we look in the PS Colour folder, we'll see there they are, they're all being processed and loaded up. Right, it's finished. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. So okay, we've now got a folder with all the coloured images in, and now that we want to make an animation. And we do that by, so this is a script, and you go to load files into a stack. So we're going to browse for the folder, and it's this one. Oops. And we're going to select all the files. Control A. I'll get some messages through from the Solar group. So all the files are in there. Now what we have to do is tick this box, attempt to automatically align the source images. And when you've done that, you hit OK, and now it will start loading all the files and try to align them all. And this can take quite some time, so it's now 9:48. I shall pause this and I'll come back when it's done it. So here we are near the end. Right, so it's aligned all the images. Now you still have to do some work on this. First thing we have to do is hit this button, create frame animation. That's it. And then you have to go over to this little icon down here and select make frames from layers. So now you've got all the individual frames along the bottom there, and you'll see we've now just got one frame on the screen. What was shown before was the sort of overall stack of images, and what you do, if you run through this, you'll see that it's aligned the sun, the details in the sun, but of course the edges have moved around, so we have to sort that out, we have to crop that. So let's stop that, and then we go to the crop tool, and then let's just crop this right down. if your alignment, your polar alignment's good, you shouldn't have to do too much cropping. But of course, if your polar alignment isn't very good, the sun's going to drift slowly in the camera view, so you will have to do a little bit of cropping. Sometimes you may have to do a lot. So anyway, that's the image cropped. Hit enter, and it will crop all of the files. Now what we should find now, I've not cropped it enough, I can see. If you just run through it again, you'll see whether you've done enough. I think we're going to see that. So let's stop that, and let's reapply the crop tool. Just bring that up a touch. And if we go through it now, it should be okay. You can see the background change at one point. I'll just let it run through. Oh, there's a bit on the left there as well. Okay, let's just stop. I need to crop a little bit more off the left side. Okay, so I'm going to assume that's right now. So we've made frames from layers. We also have to hit reverse frames. Don't ask me why, for some reason they're in reverse order at the moment. So now this should run. Oops, let's go. This will now run from frame 1 through properly. There's quite a lot going on in that, it's quite nice. So let's stop that. So what you want to do now is save that as a video file. What we do with that, you go to File, Export. You don't go to Save as, you export it, and it's this thing. Don't ask me why. It's just what works. Save for Web Legacy, and that will open up this window. It's just loading the file into it. Now you'll notice it's going to save it as a GIF file, which seems to be the only video file that you can save it as. These settings are pretty much default and are okay. Apparently this is important. Looping option forever, I don't know what that means. Loop the animation, I don't know. Anyway, hit save. Decide where you want to put it. 2025. We'll just shove it in that folder. I'll call it demo, and then save it. And now it's saving that file. And if we open Explorer and hang on, let's go the other one. If we go to, we'll see we've now got our GIF file there, which is 137 megabits, so it's quite a big file, big for YouTube anyway. And if we just run it, you'll see this is what we got. So that's all good. Now I don't understand why. In theory you can load a GIF file into YouTube. When I've tried to do it, it doesn't seem to like it. So I convert them to an MP4, which always loads up satisfactorily. The other thing with the GIF files, they're very big. You'll find that an MP4 file is smaller, so it's a little bit easier. It takes less time to load it up too. So we get rid of that. Now I have a piece of software I use, this Cyberlink Power Director, which is typically what I use to do the MP4 conversion. Now I'm just going to stop this a second. Okay, so this is Power Director, which is a bit of software I use for doing the MP4 conversion. I guess many of you won't have this. You may have some other software there's presumably other free bits of software you can use to convert a GIF file to a to an MP4 file. So I just need to identify the folder. I'm not really going to spend much time in this. It's, you know, you can add titles. It's just loading it up. Nearly there. Right, okay, there it is. So you can add your introduction, your titles or whatever. Then you can load your file. Sorry, I didn't want to do that, did I? It's that. Drag it into the... Come on. Drag it in there. Do what you like with it, add titles, sound if you want, hit produce, and then it takes you to this, and then you can select what you want. This is what this is standard settings for me. I want it to be an MP4 file, 1920 by 1080, and then tell it where you want to save it, hit start, and it will process it, convert it to an MP4 file. It's that simple, and that's how it's done. Pretty straightforward, a little bit time consuming some steps, but it works fine. So with that I shall stop and finish. Thanks for watching.